Welcome to the first Friday coffee break with the Community Indicators Consortium. CIC is a central knowledge and organizational hub for community indicators projects, helping to advance and support measurable, equitable, and sustainable improvements in the quality of community life. I am Marty Romiti, Managing Director for CIC, and on the first Friday of each month, we take a short break from our day to learn about the latest projects, data tools, and key issues happening in the world of community indicators. This month, we hear from Katie Wang, Program Manager with the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Among her roles with the Institute, Katie is responsible for facilitating the Houston Community Data Connections Program, which promotes the practical use of data by community leaders for decision-making and capacity building in Houston's communities. The program started in 2017 in the aftermath of the devastation from Hurricane Harvey and the area's critical need for neighborhood-level data and indicators. We now turn it over to Katie to explain more about the mission, key resources, services, and successes from the Houston Community Data Connection Program, along with a demonstration of the HCDC data dashboard. Thank you again for tuning into this month's CIC Coffee Break.
Hello, I hope you're well whenever and wherever you're watching this quick session. My name is Katie Wang, and I'm a program manager at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Today, I'm happy to have the opportunity to share about our Houston Community Data Connections program and highlight some of our key resources and services. So let's go ahead and jump right in. During the next 20 minutes or so, I'll speak about the inception of the Kinder HCDC program, as well as its mission and services. I'll provide a quick demonstration of the Kinder HCDC data dashboard, and finally, I'll cover the program's additional services and offerings. I want to give a quick overview of the mission and work of Houston Community Data Connections, or HCDC for short. The program seeks to facilitate the practical use of data by community leaders for decision-making and capacity building in Houston's communities. We do this in a number of different ways. So first, we host our online data dashboard containing neighborhood-level data for all of Harris County. And we'll look at that in some detail in just a moment, so I won't elaborate too much yet. In addition, we fulfill data and service requests for local organizations in the greater Houston area. Our users mostly consist of nonprofit organizations, though other types of organizations, including local government entities, researchers, media outlets, etc., also utilize our resources. Our team helps these organizations draw important insights from data that can support their work. And we also periodically work very closely with select nonprofits on specific data-focused projects and initiatives that expand their capacity to utilize data in their decision-making processes. And finally, we engage local organizations through data-focused training and learning opportunities in an effort to build their capacity to understand and use data and make a greater impact in their communities. So the Kinder HCDC program has been serving the greater Houston community for about 4 years. We launched the program in 2017 during the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, which, as you may know, devastated much of our region. We aimed to provide neighborhood-level data, including flood impact data, that could respond in real time to the needs of organizations conducting relief and recovery efforts in the wake of the storm. And throughout the last 4 years or so, we've continued that mission of providing relevant and timely neighborhood-level data to folks who are working on the ground here in the greater Houston region. Since its inception, Kinder HCDC has been part of the National Neighborhood Indicators Partnership, or NNIP. NNIP is a learning network coordinated by the Urban Institute that consists of organizations that serve as local data intermediaries in 31 cities across the country. All NNIP partner organizations commit to ensuring that their communities have access to the data and the skills that they need to use information to advance equity and well-being, specifically across neighborhoods. So before I dive into the dashboard demo, I do want to be sure to highlight our neighborhood areas, also known as Kinder Community Tabulation Areas, or CTAs. I want to explain how we delineate those, just so you have an idea of what our unit of analysis is in the data dashboard. So Kinder's CTAs are designed to serve as approximations of neighborhoods that are based specifically on census geographic boundaries. They allow us to aggregate census data to geographies that are larger than census tracts, but smaller than counties. And each census tract in Harris County is assigned to exactly one CTA. They're never going to be split. And each CTA is composed of one or more census tracts. The CTAs in Harris County contain between 1 and 29 census tracts, with a median of 4. And when we draw neighborhood boundaries, we take into account social community boundaries, like super neighborhoods, for example, as well as market areas, school districts, etc. And our hope is that CTAs serve as a more suitable approximation of kind of organic, naturally occurring neighborhoods than something like a ZCTA, which is more administrative in function. And I'll quickly show you a tool that we created to help explain CTA boundaries to our users. So I'm going to exit out of here, go to our tool. So this is a look at CTAs versus super neighborhoods. You can see that CTAs and super neighborhoods look very similar within the city of Houston's boundaries. Super neighborhoods are here in orange, and CTAs are outlined in blue. Of course, beyond the city limits, there aren't super neighborhoods, so we used other sorts of social community boundaries and community feedback to delineate CTAs outside of the city of Houston. And I do want to note that several local organizations have adopted our CTA boundary for their own spatial analysis, including some local government departments. And so that's really encouraging for our HCDC team to know that our boundary has been beneficial and helpful to organizations doing some great community work. Okay, going back to my slides. Now we can go to the fun part. So let's take a look at the Kinder HCDC data dashboard. I'll walk through its various functions and demonstrate the user interface of each tool. As I briefly mentioned, the Kinder HCDC dashboard is a robust online dashboard that provides multi-purpose community profiles with a wide array of neighborhood level indicators highlighting disparities and other local issues in the greater Houston area. So I'm gonna move on to our dashboard here. So we can start by exploring the indicator map. So the map, if we click in here, loads all of the 143 CTAs in Harris County. And you'll note that down here in the lower left, there are different layers that you can turn on and off. These include things like the county commissioner precincts, the city of Houston boundary, as well as a layer that we added relatively recently, showing the facilities that are currently in violation of EPA regulations. So the larger the blue dot here in the map, the more formal action counts a facility has. You can see that those facilities are largely concentrated here in the Houston Ship Channel, which makes sense from an industrial perspective. If you click on that dot, you can see some details here. And if you scroll all the way down, this view button will help you navigate to a detailed facility report from the EPA. So that's just a interesting new layer that we have available to our users. So the heat map here is, the map here is similar to a heat map. The darker the color of a certain neighborhood, the higher the value of whatever indicator that you're looking at. You can click into these neighborhoods to see what they are, their name, and the indicator value for that particular community area. And if you know exactly what indicator you might be interested in visualizing here, you can type that into this search box or select here, scroll through the drop-down menu. I'll note that this is not an exhaustive list of the indicators that we house in the dashboard. Rather, these represent about half of the indicators that are available in the dashboard. They're the ones that have meaning and offer insights when mapped or spatially visualized in this way. You can also search for categories of indicators here on the left. Note that we did add a COVID-19 related category during the course of the pandemic. This category includes indicators like the percent of population without health insurance, the percent of households with cash public assistance or food stamps or SNAP, and other data points that may be exacerbated or affected by or reflective of the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. So let's say I want to take a look at the percent of people who live in poverty. I'm going to type in poverty here in the search and select percent persons in poverty. And that indicator will show for all of the map, all of those 143 different neighborhood areas. So you can definitely start to see a spatial pattern here. We see this kind of backwards C that marks this, this pattern for this particular indicator. The eastern arc of the city sees a much higher concentration of poverty than do these other more western portions. And now let's say I have a special interest in a particular neighborhood, which happens to be near Northside. I can click on near Northside here and see that the CTA has a poverty rate of about 28%. This might spark my interest. Maybe I want to know more about the status of this community. I can link directly to the community profile for near Northside by clicking view. I could also do that by going here to community profile, though this is super easy, straightforward, so I'm just going to do it directly from here. So once I do so, we can see the community profile for the near Northside neighborhood. Immediately, we're brought to this kind of landing page where we can see a quick overview of key data for that community, including race and ethnicity, age demographics, education attainment, etc. If I click here in the full profile tab, we can see all of the indicators available for that community. So you can kind of scroll through, see the extent of that. There are over 100 different data points. We can also see how the neighborhood stacks up against the city of Houston and Harris County numbers. We think it's really important for users to be able to compare and contextualize these different values. And if you want to know more about specific indicators, we can click on this little plus sign. So I'm going to scroll down right here. We can click on this little plus sign and see specific details. So we can see the year of the data source, and any special notes. So I'll go click on the percent of limited English speaking households. If we're not quite sure what that means, we can begin to understand that that particular indicator references the total population speaking English less than very well in a household divided by the total population 5 years and older. So that can kind of add some nuance to your understanding of these particular indicators. And I do want to note that we have featured indicators for several neighborhoods. You can see that here, featured indicators tab. We gather this featured information through collaborations with other projects, initiatives, and community organizations across the region. At this time, we have featured indicators for a number of neighborhoods in the dashboard, and near Northside happens to be one of those. So if we click on the featured indicators tab, we can see some special data that was collected through a safety assessment that the Kinder Institute conducted in collaboration with a couple of local nonprofits, Baker Ripley and Link Houston, as well as the University of Houston. So if we want to further explore, we'll go ahead and click in here. We can see visualizations that reflect neighborhood safety concerns. For example, this heat map showing the intensity of crime in relation to the metro line. Below that, we can see some simple visualizations that reflect neighbors' responses to questions about safety and accessing public transportation infrastructure. And then if we scroll up, there's a second tab here that contains sidewalk assessment data that was collected through a detailed walk audit in collaboration with community members. So the purpose of featured indicators like these is really to highlight specific challenges, strengths, and priorities of distinct neighborhoods and to generally add nuance to community profiles so that our users can have a more robust understanding of what is the reality in these particular neighborhood areas. So I'm going to navigate back to our dashboard and we'll go through the final and third function, which is our compare function. So with this function, we can compare different time periods for the same community, or we can compare different communities. So let's choose a different neighborhood to explore this time. I'm gonna look at Alief, and we're gonna see how that neighborhood might have changed a little bit over time. I'm gonna type in Alief. This is a community in Southwest Houston. You can also select it here in the map. This is just super easy. Click compare over time, and we're brought to this nice, neat table. And we can see that between 2010 and 2018, there were some changes in this community. So first, we can see that the population increased by about 20,000 people. In terms of demographics, if we scroll down just a bit, we can see that the share of the population that's white decreased by about 3%, as did the African-American population. And during that same time, the Asian population increased by about 2%, and the Hispanic population increased by about 4%. Scroll down a bit further, we can see that the percent of renter-occupied units in Alief increased by about 5%, but the percent of persons living in poverty actually remained remarkably the same at about 22%. If you scroll all the way down, you can see some nice basic visualizations that can kind of help you get a sense of some of those changes. Now back to the other compare function, compare communities. You can make up to 3 selections here. So you can compare 3 communities at a time, maximum. I'm again gonna look at Alief in comparison to another neighborhood called Gulfton. So these are 2 neighborhoods that are part of the Mayor's Complete Communities initiative here in Houston. They aren't too far away from each other in Southwest Houston. So I'm interested in seeing how these kind of stack up against each other. I'll click compare. And again, we're brought to this table where we can see side by side the same indicators for these different communities. So we can see that Alief is home to about 3 times the population of Gulfton. It's also much bigger in terms of land area. And still, Gulfton has a much higher population density, which is a very important thing to note about this particular community. We scroll down here and we look at race and ethnicity. We can see that the neighborhoods have a similar share of non-white or non-Hispanic white folks, excuse me. This population is relatively small. Beyond that, Alief is about 22% Asian, while Gulfton is about 5%, and Gulfton is about 73% Hispanic or Latino, while Alief is about 46%. Scrolling down a bit further, both neighborhoods have a relatively large share of foreign-born people, though Gulfton has a larger percentage of limited English-speaking households. We scroll down further and take a look at renter-occupied units. This is a really notable indicator. We see that Gulfton shows a whopping 96%, while Alief is about 55% renter-occupied. So this can shed some light on Gulfton's high population density, for example, that we mentioned earlier. This particular neighborhood is marked by extremely large apartment complexes where many immigrant and refugee families reside. So I'll stop my comparison there, but you can kind of get an idea of how this tool helps users understand how neighborhoods converge and diverge in terms of their statuses, their challenges, strengths, and more. I'll briefly return to our dashboard homepage here, because I do want to note that you can subscribe to our regular user newsletter by clicking the Stay Up to Date button down here in the lower right corner. We share regular updates about our data, data updates, data additions, any special projects our team is pursuing. We share all of that with users on a regular basis. It's a great way to stay abreast of what our program is up to. Returning to our PowerPoint. So I do want to highlight a few other services that our Kinder HCDC program offers to organizations working in the Greater Houston region. First, and as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, we provide data and research support to nonprofit organizations that expands their capacity to use data to make decisions. So the data and research support that we provide often bolsters things like grant proposals or establishes baseline information against which programs and interventions can be evaluated. It informs planning and evaluation processes and often strengthens advocacy efforts at the local level. In addition, our team provides data-focused training and learning resources that nonprofits can access as they build their capacity to understand and use data to make decisions about their programs. For example, our Kinder HCDC Data Digest highlights various HCDC data in brief stories, visualizations, and infographics. So by breaking down indicators into their component parts, the Data Digest provides a nuanced and accessible view of complex data in just a few short minutes that's really digestible, hence Data Digest. In addition, we collaborate with local stakeholders to conduct training and workshops that show how HCDC and other data sets can be used to strengthen organizations' decisions and mission-oriented programs. And finally, you can make a request to our team by submitting a form via the Contact Us page on our site or by emailing us at hcdc@rice.edu. If you have any questions or would like further information, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. I really hope that this has been informative and that you have the opportunity to explore our work further. So thank you so much for your time and take care.